Okay, welcome everyone. Installment 11 conversation, and over to Rick.
So today is our first time where I'm going to try to facilitate, and everybody, it's so nice to see you, and feel free to talk and share. I believe that all of the questions for all of our chapters 72 to 79 were in the chat, the questioning. So feel free.
May I say that what I love about this third volume is it's very current. We're talking about those 2020. We're not talking about the past. It's very present, and I just love it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you.
I can piggyback on that, Jacques. I am so enjoying it. And Rick, if Christina forwarded my thank yous, I was just, this last installment was just such a moment of grace for me. And I agree with Jacques. It's bringing us right to the current moment. But what I found in these last 9 chapters, you know, that moment of grace for me was maybe just a little bit of a review, but the whole process that has gotten us to here, to this very moment. And we're in the front seat of the roller coaster, and we're going to go through that dark tunnel. We're going through it with the current dark consciousness that are bubbling up, but we've had to reverse our thinking. We've had to go from ego to joining and wholeheartedness and knowing who we are in relationship, to rely on the light and that internal process. And it tells us we've got angels helping us. We're going to get another participant that's going to be almost our personal guide. And it was just, it was such grace for me, such a privilege to be invited to be on the ride. Or, you know, it talks about the mature souls. So we do know that we have chosen this. We have been preparing for it. ACIM, we had to unwind the mind or undo that separated thinking, right, in order to come to peace and to a place of stillness. And ACIM says, now you have to know. Now you have to put that mind with the heart, reverse that thinking, come to know who you are, and understand oneness, or get to that place of union. And now we are forerunners or pioneers or front runners of creating the new, going into the new idea. So it's just really exciting for me and grace-filled. Thank you, Rick.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lorena. Hello, Julia. How are you today?
I'm doing great today. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Zonia, can I just check? You can see subtitles? You're good?
She's on mute. Sonia, you're on mute.
Unmute, yeah.
There.
You all
Yeah.
good? Good. All right. Excellent. Julia, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Julia.
And Irene, I assume you're there. You just have video off. Is that right? You can hear us okay, Irene? Maybe she's not there. Okay.
So everybody feel free to talk about whatever's coming up for you right now. This group of chapters, and also some that come much later on, really have to do with privileges. So like we've been learning, you know, that we are spirit and that's your true nature. And I think it's one thing to hear that and another thing to believe it. But now we're finding out that if that's really true, that there are all kinds of things that go along with it. So we were finding out about, you know, spirit helpers, and later on, much later on, it actually explains how the Christ mind works and how souls work, how souls do their work of trying to influence a character here. And so those little things are really interesting. And if it is true, and of course we all believe that it is true, that we are spirit and we are souls, then there are things that now we're getting to know. I think that they're like privileges, but just to be aware of them is really a great thing. And I'm grateful for, you know, knowing that these little things that are part of our experience as free souls here, free spirits, who have bodies and who can serve the world of spirit. So
This even tells us we need to bring this ego along. Like, we can't bash it. We're at this very point, this very moment, because of its kind of a propulsion. You know, it was movement for us to learn our lessons. And it's had its purpose, has its purpose to bring us right to this point. And we have to be grateful. We can't bash it. We have to be grateful for it. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. I like that, Lorraine. And I'm curious to know what other people think, but I don't know, as long as I'm walking here on this planet, that I don't know if the ego goes away. It becomes a servant to soul. Because to me, ego equates to like free will. I mean, it's the choice we're making all the time. It's like, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what other people think, because, you know, we talk about the end of the ego and all that, you know, like it's a bad thing. And this chapters here make it very clear that, you know, quit bashing the ego, you know, you know, it just chooses with love or it chooses with fear. And gratitude is do everything that brought us where we are. So I don't know.
It's on the back seat. It's not driving anymore. It's sitting on the back seat.
Right.
That it hasn't disappeared, but we're running the show, and he's looking.
you take the pot sometimes and put it on the back burner. It's still there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're more aware of it. I don't think you're a victim of whatever it's to do
Right.
at any time. You're more aware of who's talking. Is it that, or is it your true self?
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Could I say something?
Please.
Yeah, I agree with all of you that I think ego just recedes some. For me, the idea is ego doesn't speak first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, now often you have to, you realize, ego would have said that, or does say it actually. But I think as time goes on and as we become more conscious of it, ego doesn't speak first, is my thought about it. It's sort of the same thing you all said. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
Does anybody think the ego ever, as long as I'm here in form, okay, let's just say for the sake of argument that I am an elevated self of form, which I'm not yet, but say I'm there already and accomplished, I'm an elevated self of form. Ego's there on the back burner, right?
I would say so, because, you know, we do, as long as we're living on the earth,
Right.
we have to not do foolish things. You know, we have to
Yeah.
take care of ourselves and don't fall downstairs and don't, you know. So we do have to pay attention to, you know, don't, you know, cars are coming when you cross the street. So I think that we have to pay attention. I'm not sure the ego ever leaves completely, but as a, you know, I don't think it leaves completely as long as we're living on, you know, as we're alive on the earth.
Right. It's kind of absorbed. Yeah, I agree with you, Irene. It's like it's an indivisible, seamless speck in spirit, in soul. And I actually like there's a place in this particular installment, I think it's chapter 76, where they explain the 3 different terms that have been used. You know, soul is the same as true self, which, you know, Course of Love refers to true self, elevated self of form, and all of that. And it's the same as Holy Spirit from A Course in Miracles. I love that. And I've always felt that with the Course of Love, that the Holy Spirit, I always think of the, what's that, the feast day in the church called when the tongues of flame, you know, when Jesus comes and the tongues of flame enters. Pentecost, that's it. So I always use the sort of the image in me has been that, you know, the Holy Spirit was more like I felt it was on the outside when I was studying A Course in Miracles, but A Course of Love kind of brought it within somehow into the heart space. And when it gets integrated with my body and the elevation of the self of form, that's when soul takes up full residence, you know? So yeah, I love that explanation. Really glad.
And I love how it's written here. I love how it came through in this, I guess it was chapter 75. The words that really struck me was that the ego moves to the back burner and is ultimately consumed by the soul. I love that word, consumed. Like when I read that and I listened to it, it felt kind of loving to me, like this, like consuming in a loving way, and becoming, you know, sort of the nurturer of it. For me, I see the ego as an interface, in some ways, almost the way the body is an interface. And that, you know, we used to think that it was who we were. And then as we get more and more integrated, the soul just shines through the interface, but we need the interface in order to interact with the world. So that's kind of how I see it. And it just becomes more and more transparent as we become more integrated with the soul.
I love that, Julia. Thanks for drawing my attention. That's like, it's then consumed. And then I thought of the word consummated.
Yes,
like the marriage is complete. It's union.
Yeah, so it's
complete union. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And it does say it's not the enemy of God, the ego.
Right.
In that very same.
Exactly.
Right?
God does not have any enemies.
I think A Course of Love, somewhere in it, it did tell us that the ego would no longer have control over us in the same way. But our thought patterns from ego or from body or from human existence are so ingrained, so much a part of us that they're still going to be around. We're still going to, I don't know if they said revert, but if it was revert back into it, but it did say it wouldn't have the same control. And I'm sorry, I don't know where. I kind of remember that. And the second thing, Christine, about the 3 names, I think that's where I felt the grace pouring into me, because somehow I recognized in that moment that, oh my God, I've always been my soul. And my soul I've always equated to great, great love, right? But in Course of Miracles, in the clarification of terms, it says, I'm using Holy Spirit here because, and then I think it's bracketed, soul, because of the many connotations or the many ways we interpret or understand soul. It's so varied for many ways. And now when I look back, I can see, oh my gosh, he was inferring that they were the same thing. But I've only been able to see that now with 2020, right? And that they were all the same, even I sometimes use a metaphor for my life, and it's a tapestry. I can see the colors and the knots in the back. We've all heard that metaphor. But I've always known that there's a continuous thread that has been in my life, and it was the Holy Spirit. At that moment, just before writing you, I had an image of now, Holy Spirit. I could see nothing on the tapestry. Everything faded. My life would be the picture. Everything faded. And this red continuous string that I felt had connected my life together, I saw as soul and love, and it was bright red, right? And I still have that image so much from, and that's when I said, oh my God, Christine, this just gets better and better. It was a moment of grace for me. And it was really a flooding for me to that point of tears. Like when I read your readings, you weep, right? That's why I got to. Thank you for listening to me. It was a beautiful moment, so thank you.
It may sound a bit unbelievable, but I don't see any egosma. I don't see them. I see immature souls, more immature and less immature souls, but I don't see any egos nowhere.
Maybe that's the consummation.
I think one of the things that, since when an ego, we like to make judgments about everything, and we like to make everything bad. So ego actually judged itself and made it bad. And so I think that's our concern about, oh my goodness, I'm an ego. Well, as the ego starts to disappear or get less important in our lives, we don't act from ego first. It just kind of disappears or gets less of it. And I just think that one of the things when people begin to, not you folks, because you've been in this forever, but begins to get into the spiritual things, they hear the word ego and then they make it bad. Oh, that's bad. Everything then connected to ego is bad. I don't think, if we just take the word bad out and stop judging ourselves, ego judging itself, because that's what ego does. It judges itself and everybody else. And as you all are talking about becoming more spiritual and less egoic, it just isn't, it becomes less and less important.
You know, it says in A Course of Love that the ego is no longer. I mean, we don't relate to it. And in one of the chapters here, it says the ego has a purpose. It's like in my classes, I said, you know, it's because otherwise you'd have to learn to tie your shoes every day or something. It just is, it's there as a guiding thing in this 3D world. And it's not who we are or what we are, but again, it talks about the egoic operating system. It's kind of wrong. We're now on a different operating system, that's all. And so, yeah. And yeah, not to make a devil out of the ego. There's no sense in doing that either. And it's that consummate. I mean, love embraces all things, trusts all things, loves all things, and transcends it. It will absorb it. It takes it in. And yeah, so it just is. I like the idea that it's just really an immature soul. That's all.
Yes.
Just not aware of what it really is.
Judy, can I just ask you a question? Because you're more currently looking at A Course in Miracles than I am. I would say it's probably a good 10 years since I really read the book, you know, sat down with it, I've dipped in. But so my memory from that time is a feeling of ego being a thing to be very wary of.
Well,
Is that misunderstanding, or would you say
no,
that?
what it is it, and I think he says this in A Course of Love, maybe even in here. It basically, our understanding at that time, he used
Right,
that
exactly. But I'm just checking. A Course in Miracles did kind of give us that message.
Yes.
Okay.
But we're beyond that now.
Right.
And so, and I think was it in here or maybe in A Course of Love, in the days that I'm reading now in class. So the thing of it is it's like learning, 2 + 2 is 4. After you learn that, you don't really need to relearn that or even hang on to that anymore.
Yeah.
You move beyond it. And so it's and same way with even Holy Spirit. I know in A Course of Love, and even Jesus, he says, I'm no longer your teacher. It's just we're one. And so it's just this great progression. And now with this book, we're here. This is the second kind.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. So, I mean, I'm completely with you, Judy, except for one thing. And I need to say this because what I'm getting from this installment especially is, yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with everything you've said. And the reason I clarified that question, and I think it's important for us to, for me anyway, to remember all of that, is because we're asked to go out there and be friend, and be out with people who are not there, or as Jack calls it, immature souls. And we can call it, egos are still in the front driver's seat. So, to be able to connect with people, and most of my life is in that way. I'm not, interacting a lot with spiritual communities. It's kind of important to make that distinction and keep it all in the same playing field, And I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what I'm saying, but there's something about it being here on the planet. We just have to look around, and there's lots of egos at play, and we're being called to step up and, be examples for all of that in every interaction. So, yeah.
And we say the ego was a useful tool. Doesn't need to keep using it.
Well, I don't, but I wouldn't say that to anybody else.
Well, within our group, can we say that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was just talking about going out in the world, but maybe that's not relevant for this conversation.
Well, that would be like trying to, we're not supposed to I can never say that word. We're not supposed to go out there and preach. Just go and be ourselves, and people will grasp it from there. As a matter of fact, any amount of preaching would probably turn people off completely because they wouldn't understand it in a lot of ways, so, yeah.
I want to come back to what you said, Jacques, because I feel it keeps resonating with me. When you said you don't see egos anymore, and I understand what you're saying, and I feel like it's a very important thing. I think more recently, like a while ago, I had a period of time where I was, sort of in all of this spiritual awakening and all of this, and feeling like, how do I even talk to people who are not in this place? And all I could see were people's egos, right? That was all I could see. But that's not me being awakened. That's me actually operating from my own ego, because all I'm seeing is other people's egos. And so now there's a difference in that and meeting someone and just not even seeing that part of them, but seeing beyond it. And I think that's what you're speaking of. And this is what is happening to me more and more. And it is a very different way of relating to people. It doesn't actually matter where they're coming from or what they're saying, or you're just seeing them as another, it's like a reflection of me, really. It's not even like a separate soul. I'm talking to an expression that is another expression of me in a particular way. And it's just a different way of relating to people and seeing people. So those are words I would put on it. But I really appreciate what you said, because it just felt like it needed to be sort of emphasized a little bit.
So to piggyback on what everybody said, or not that you're doing it, but I mean, when your ego gets put to the back burner, there's space now. It's not like right here, and I'm always acting from it. I'm always reacting and going crazy and saying something and all of this stuff. There's some space. So I know when it's wanting my attention, and mine has definitely wanted my attention the past few days, with some judgments about people that I work with. And so if there's space, I know what it is, and I know I can choose to listen to it or not listen to it. And again, what Jock's saying and what Julia's saying too, when I see other people, I don't see them as just that. I know there's more to it, and there's space. So to me, that's what that means. Moving it to the back burner or having it move to the back burner, just means that I'm not a slave to it anymore. I think I was definitely a slave to it, and probably a lot of people feel that way. They don't feel like they have any control over how they react to all of the triggers and stressors in life. But we know that we do have a choice on how we react, because there is that space, and there is that, that's not me all the time, identity issue. And if it's not me all the time, it isn't you all the time either. And it isn't anybody all the time. It's just something to contend with sometimes. And like I said, this week, mine has definitely wanted me to contend with it. But I know not to go there. I don't want to go there with it. So, but
it's still present is what you're saying. It's true for me too. I mean, I just can't imagine. I was actually, while you were talking, Rick, I went kind of looking. There was a place I remember where it talks about this quite specifically, and it's back in chapter 41. I remember this paragraph was quite, and I'm still hanging out with it. It says, the elevated self of form is a midpoint goal. That was interesting to hear that that's a midpoint goal. One we think is both practical and achievable. The complete absence of ego is still a long way off. For now, we want to educate people about what an ego is and how to control it long enough until it is tame or dormant. At this point, the soul is mature enough to take over. And I think that's kind of where I am. And I think the last installment is where it talked about the souls being caged and let out for a walk now and again, if, they're very good kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm working. So I would definitely not say that my ego is gone. It's definitely much weaker, and I still get triggered if I see in other people that, so I'm not anywhere there yet.
Christina, I do sympathize with your question to me, because I struggle with, well, how do we have a conversation with someone that's not at the same level of consciousness as we are? But I think what I'm seeing and hoping in following Journey, it will be given to us. If we see the other as we're the same, and the face of Christ in them, that we are one, we're not better, we're not less, even maybe same level of conscious, that we will be guided in a way. That's because I have struggled with that, up to getting to this point, like in the process of it all. Well, how do I even talk to this about somebody that can't understand me? And I mean, sometimes I can't understand and articulate well what I'm trying to say about it, right? But I don't think that's so much what it's about anymore, as it's a meeting of souls. It's a meeting of light. It's an encounter. It's an embrace. And we are being now primed, or we are being taught in a new way. Not that we're learning so much, but we're being led to see with the help that we will get. And it's that shifting from the external to the internal guidance, and really trusting and knowing what we'll be able to deal with those situations, you know, or I think it says, and we'll know what to say at the right time. We'll know just what to say and what to do. Mm-hmm. It'll become so.
And in the middle of a conversation, I can ask for help.
Yeah,
with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is what I love doing that, because it always comes. Yeah.
Doesn't it say here, okay, you've got to be in constant prayer here. You're one of these just newer ones. It's be in constant state of prayer. Questions and answers will be answered. Allow time. Crossing the line of time outside of time and linear time may take a few moments. So we need that pause. But that constant state of prayer is that being in mind that I'm guided, that I am that true self, I am the light, always going to that. And reminding myself to consciously say, hi, guys, I know you're here with me. Hi, I take 10 minutes and go up in my prayer room and give thanks and say, I know you're here with me. I don't know what to say to you. I mean, I say thank you. But so I'm trying to get into that habit. And as Christine reminds us every week, bless, 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 bless everything. Be conscious and just bless it.
That's one of the privileges too of this way of life, is having access like that, and having access to power and being in communication. I mean, think of it before. I mean, if you were a religious person, maybe you believed that there was a God out there someplace who would punish you or give you what you want if you beg and plead, right? But now that you know this, it is a privilege. You don't have to wonder anymore. It's like you already know it.
It's the knowing.
How are you doing, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying the conversation here. And I was, I mean, for me, my ego, I'm much more aware of it. It's still very active, but I'm just learning to various ways of, for me, with the ego, there's still a bit of work around nurturing and feminine qualities. I'm very aware of developing these, and that's key for me really at this point in time, really. I can see it, with the ego really, that it is I can see many of the qualities of my ego that they were developed during childhood, and for good reasons, I think, just, and I can see it, but it was a necessity. There were necessities at some point in the youth that was the best option really, and how it developed. So, I'm still learning a lot about that. And, but I do like this, as I was reading through this week's chapters, I like, I was looking at this, would you like to relocate? Yes, right now. Don't be surprised, There were some good things in there, and are you grateful for the journey, all the stuff that's taken you here? And I kind of, I am becoming more and more grateful, I mean, for where I am in, the authenticity of my life right now, and the stuff that I've come through. So yeah, I really love these questions. They're able to land in me quite easily. I don't have to do a lot of huffing and puffing and deep meditation to get into them, although that's very, very helpful. I'm still learning how to contemplate and how to sit and how to give space to things. And that's still new to me, give space to a good question. But I've seen something this week that was helpful there. So for me, yeah, it's practice, practice, practice. But the questions are really, really, really helpful. I feel quite I feel much more connected to this work than than ACI. And yeah, but I'm good. A little bit tired tonight, but I'm good.
I love that, Kevin, that we can land in this so much more easily. ACIM was really doing a bunch of mental hoops and loops, mental gymnastics for me. It really was. And even when I'm with a group that I can't even explain non-concepts anymore. I just get confused, like I don't even try. Because for me, it was jumping through a lot of mental loopholes and hoops and, like I said, mental gymnastics. And I love that you're present here. I love when you first introduced yourself and you said that this was had injected with like a new life for you. You felt like you were more alive. And I've never forgotten that. And I just love your presence. I just feel you hold us, we hold you. So I look forward to seeing you every week. And all of you. We're all holding each other here.
Thank you,
Lorraine. Sorry. Julia might not know, we now have closed captioning for Sonia. And I'm wondering if we should maybe ask Sonia if she wants to say anything and pause, because there's quite a lag time between what's said, because I've been watching those. And if she, has to read quite a bit before it ends. So Sonia, do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes, okay.
Zonia, are you okay with how the closed captioning is going?
Yes, I don't get everything. And for me, because for me to get into a group is so hard. Changing from voice to voice, it takes me time to orientate. And then the word sometimes change quickly. I cannot follow everything. So I'm trying to get it. But for me to be able to be in a group is already a lot. Yeah, thank you.
So maybe we can all be aware to slow down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's okay. I will be part of the group. I'll have to take my time to orientate myself in the group. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm glad you're here, Zonia. And, it's come whenever you can, and it's an open invitation to everybody. I don't think of this as so much as a group, as a weekly gathering for whomever can be here. And so I'm very glad you can be here and that the closed captionings are working for you. I know you get up very early in the morning to do this, like Kevin is staying up very late. So thank you.
Well, I like I just like the resonance on a Wednesday, just for an hour. It's quite nice to just be in his place. You know, I find it quite nice.
Yeah.
I just want to make a question. It's okay. I always thought that the self, the capital letter, is the spirit. And the soul is different. But they all three are the same, no?
Just
The
different.
soul and the spirit and the self are the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is the same, the Holy Spirit too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that was always like that. Yeah. That is the part of God who lives in us.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, incredible.
And
No?
yeah.
Yeah, that was for me a bit eye-opening.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Why then Jesus, when he was on the earth, he bring the Holy Spirit to be in human being. The Holy Spirit was not before. Before Jesus came, there was no Holy Spirit. If our soul is the Holy Spirit, how can be this one? I don't understand this one.
There's been a divine component to us. Souls were talked about, I'm sure, before Christ, but Jesus was the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, who sort of passed it on to us to help us, to be our guide, to be our comforter, to be our counselor. And there's all kinds of fruits of the Holy Spirit, so that we would not be left alone, because we still needed help. We still, there's always been a divine essence in us. I think we've always been a part of the source. It cannot be any other way. And I think there was different understandings of what the soul was. If you go into the different gods, I'm not any expert on that at all. But Jesus came as a manifestation of the Spirit, which has always been our soul and our higher self. We've always had that higher self. We just were thought we were separated from it. Now we're joining with our divine essence. We are joining the mind with the heart. We only saw ourselves as a mind. And Jesus said we weren't ready for his message of radical love, and that we were radical love. So I think we've always been a soul. We've always had a divine essence component to us, right? So we've always had a higher self. It's just been a long journey to come from thinking we didn't to now understanding union and unity and holy relationship. It's just been referred to and called. Oh, does that help?
And there is no caption here. Caption will come in a few minutes. Yeah.
Every once in a while the captions stop, and I don't know why.
Yeah. No. What I understand is the Holy Spirit was from the beginning is the human, in us. That is what comes to have a physical life. But when Jesus came, put the Holy Spirit at the forefront.
At the
forefront.
That's what I'm
the forefront. Thank you.
At the forefront, yes, at the front, so that we can see who we are.
Yes.
But we didn't get it. Mm-hmm. We didn't get it. We thought it's separate from us. Mm-hmm. No?
Yes, correct.
And this is who we are. Oh my God. That was for me like a big shock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Beautifully
why I
said.
like, yeah. That's why I like to join this group, because I can get a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and share with all of you. Yeah. And thanks very much, Rick Greathouse. I'm very happy for him. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe we could think of, maybe Jesus was the first person who, he was a human being who put the ego in the back seat.
Yes. Jesus put the Holy Spirit at the front and the ego at the back. But we put the ego at the front and the Holy Spirit behind, in the back seat. Come on, like, no?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I think there's even something in the Bible where Jesus is supposed to have said, "Get thee be Satan," called it Satan. Satan,
get thee behind me.
Yeah. But the Bible says, poor of whom who curse the Holy Spirit have no forgiveness in this life, neither in the next life. I have proven that to be wrong.
Okay.
I have proven that to be wrong from the Bible. It's a lie, big lie in the Bible. Now that the Holy Spirit is me, my soul, now I understand why that verse from the Bible is totally a lie. Yes, absolutely a lie. I'm so happy, yeah.
I mean, Zonia, we have to remember that the Bible has been translated so many times by, from Aramaic originally, and also, the interpretation has been more masculine, I would say. There's so much in there that you can interpret it much more softly than it is. I mean, I think one of the earlier conversations I mentioned something I'd heard, nothing to do with Course in Miracles, Course of Love, or Journey, but it was someone talking about the translation of the Bible, and they talked about the words good and evil, and the original story of Adam and Eve, and eating of the fruit of the tree of good, good and evil. And this person said that the Aramaic was badly translated. The words originally used did not mean good and evil. It meant ripe and unripe. And so a more appropriate thinking is what Journey is giving us, which is mature and immature. There is no good and evil, which is a very, it's like a very linear either or way of thinking, which to me is a brain thinking, a masculine way of thinking, either or, either or, either or. No, it's ripe and unripe, which is more feminine. It's all on a continuum. It's all together. One is just shaded this way and it's moving in this direction. It's all part of the seamless whole, so that's really important as we move into this, living this. And similarly, Zonia, when you said, the soul is part of spirit or part of God and was different, that was another misunderstanding I had. But when we think about even that phrase, part of God, it doesn't make any sense. You can't be a part of God. So the way I've kind of felt about it for a long time is like, think in terms of a hologram. You can't be a piece of a hologram, because in every particle of light of a hologram, all the information is there. It's just whether it's expressed, how it's expressed. Go ahead, Kevin.
This came up for me this year. It's something that I read, and it really landed with me with this the Adam and Eve story, that this left and right brain this left brainness of it, that the tree of the good and evil, and the fact that it's so, you know, it's a cutoff, and my understanding from what I've seen of that, and it seemed to land me, was this: the Eve bit, the Eve, and you know, this, it's this cutting off of almost of the feminine sex, you know, the sex areas, that the ego's hijacks sex, and I don't know how it's got in there into the Bible, but it's somehow the Adam and Eve in these stories have hijacked, and they haven't really, there isn't that, you know, there isn't that harmony for the, you know, in those stories, like there's some kind of, so it's interesting what you're saying, and this for me has been a revelation, particularly, you know, that there's this male and female, and you know, the feminine rising, which is, you know, you could see it as, you know, it's a wonderful thing, you know, and even in my own self, this feminine holding is very much a thing that I'm cultivating, because I can see it, that male energy is pretty, without that grounding of that holistic side of that holding, it's the male energy is just very much out there, and it's very destructive and gets into trouble, which is my experience of myself, you know. So learning to cultivate, so yeah, those stories in the Bible really, the same thing is when, I think, I don't know if there's the same, like this, when Moses comes down from the mountains, and everyone's supposedly partying and having a good time, and there's sex, and again, I think it's the same fearful male energy that's there, but I don't know how these get into the Bible. This is, you know, what people read, I suppose. I don't know who writes this stuff. I don't know.
You have to remember, Kevin, that the stories and those myths, and there's always a kernel of truth in the myth, but they got passed down by word of mouth for generation to generation to generation. And we come out of a period of time, an epoch of time, where it was very patriarchal. So the male would be threatened by anything. I mean, you couldn't identify with anything that was female, and the male held the power. I mean, they were even they were afraid of any power coming from women. But so how we've understood and how we've created stories have had to go through the filter of the human brain. And we can even remember at the time of Jesus, the people that wrote, he never wrote a thing down, but the people that did write were males. And we have to remember, at that time, they saw the world as flat. I don't need I say anymore in that, you know, perception and how they were even formed, their limited view, world view. And they owned women and children. We were chattel right up. I mean, we could, this is a whole nother discourse. But so they got passed down, and then they got interpreted the best way they could. But we have to remember the time, the patriarchal times, and the worldview at the time. And so things, we're starting now to figure out and see it from the more holistic, as Christina points out, the ripening, the ripe or unripe makes way more sense to me as well. That's that polarization, good and bad, male or female, and one's better than the other. You know, we're coming out of that. We see it.
As was mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, that this is so, the information we're getting is for right now, this time, where we are. And so it makes it very clear, and it's a good instruction. I have to go now. So anyhow, nice
and
seeing
you
again.
Thank you,
Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
The important thing that in what you said, Lorraine, is that the feminine energies in all of us, masculine, feminine, is in every human being. It's not an either or. The feminine energy is all inclusive. The feminine energy is a flow. It is the ocean that holds all of everything. It is not an either or. But of course, if we look at the feminine energy from a masculine point of view, it is feared because it is seen as wanting to take over. It's an either or competitive thing, but that is not the feminine energy. The feminine energy receives and nurtures and holds. And when in balance, is also powerful and forceful, which is the masculine integrated with the feminine. And that can be expressed. Yeah. I mean, just think about the power of a woman giving birth to a child. I mean, that is force in its strongest form, you know. But it is both. There's no division in the feminine energy, and that's what's arising on the planet. It's not a, you know, either or, you know.
Yeah. You always have to remind me, Christina. It's both and.
Because that, I think,
not either or.
A lot of people, men especially, kind of think of it as either or, and it terrifies them. And of course it should, because we don't want competition. There is no competition. It's just a web. A web that is inclusive and open, and there's always room on a web for anyone to join. And the strength and power of a web is in the relationships, pulling us closer and closer to the center. That's the feminine form, which includes everything, versus a masculine linear hierarchy, you know? Either or, I'll sort you this way. Oh, are you up here or are you down here? Oh, are you up here or are you down here? Well, let's put you in order, you know? But all of it was necessary, as Judy said before she left. Every season for everything.
Yes, and that makes us understand why it was written the way it was in those days. But also, I love what you just said, Christine. You always put things into such a beautiful perspective. Is, you know, it is the time to create that win-win world for all, or the win-win way of being for all of us.
All inclusive.
Right?
No,
we're always all
winning. It's all right. And I will say one thing though. I do not agree the way it was meant back then was for that in that way. I feel we can have a whole other conversation about Mary Magdalene and how her voice was lost in all of this, you know, so that's a whole other thing. It could have been different. It could have been different, but it wasn't. So it wasn't the right time. That's all.
I would like to add just a little something to this. Besides the Bible's interpretation of all stories, there's the church's interpretation of all stories. And I was brought up Roman Catholic, and they certainly had created all kinds of things. They took, you know, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and they split them. So they made, you know, that we couldn't reach the Father, and so they, and then this material that we're working with now brings those three, all back together. That it was never separated. There was never a separation between the Father and humanity and the Son and the Holy Spirit. It was always one. It was just, you know, churches and hierarchies and who needed to embellish the story to fit whatever they were saying.
And you're right, Irene. I love that, the reminder, because it's also, you have to remember that the church was built on the model of the Roman armies. You know, it was a very hierarchical model. So yeah, you know what? I just want to say I can't wait for Mari Perron's new book to come out. The new book is being received. She's been receiving and working on it for the past year, and I believe this is only one part of it. It's only, what was that, Jacques?
I have to go.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're going to wrap up in just a second. It's nice to see you. The book is called Mirari, The Way of the Marys. And I love that because it's so inclusive. It's not one, it's collective. So, that's hopefully we'll have conversations about that at some point in the next few months. So thank
Christina,
you all.
I can't wait for it either. I'm
Thank you.
waiting.
I have to go
So,
too.
okay,
Good.
bye everybody.
Thank you.
Nice being with you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye,
thanks
Rick.
everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thanks,
See ya.
everyone.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.